Happy New Year, beautiful souls. I hope 2026 brings you all the love, passion, and unexpected reunions you deserve. Today, I'm taking you on a journey through the streets of Chicago where blood, loyalty, and forbidden love collide. Buckle up because this is Crimson Soul, and nothing about this love story is safe. The rain fell like tears over Oakwood Cemetery, each drop a mourning song for the young woman being laid to rest. Ayanna Pierce stood at the graveside in a black dress that hung loose on her diminished frame, her natural curls pulled back in a simple bun that did nothing to hide the exhaustion carved into her brown skin. At 38, she looked older today. Grief had a way of stealing years from the living. "My daughter believed in justice," Aya said, her voice carrying over the gathering of mourners. "Naomi fought for those who couldn't fight for themselves. She exposed corruption in places most people were too afraid to look. And now she's gone because someone didn't want the truth to come out." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. They knew what Naomi had been investigating before her death. Human smuggling rings. Political corruption. The kind of darkness that got people disappeared in Chicago. Aya's brother Marcus stood to her left, his FBI badge hidden under his suit jacket, but his agent's awareness on full display. His dark eyes scanned the crowd constantly, watching for threats his sister refused to acknowledge existed. Detective Sarah Chun stood on Aya's right, her hand a steady presence on the attorney's shoulder. Sarah had been the one to call Aya 3 weeks ago with news that shattered her world. "Your daughter is dead. Suspected assassination. We're investigating." Naomi was 23 years old. Aya continued, tears finally breaking through her composed facade. She had her whole life ahead of her. She was brilliant and brave and so beautiful. And someone took her from us like she was nothing. The cemetery gates opened with a creak that cut through the service like a knife. 6 black SUVs rolled in with the kind of precision that spoke of military training. They moved in formation, surrounding the funeral gathering in a way that was both protective and threatening. The crowd parted instinctively, that primal recognition of predators in their midst. The rear door of the center vehicle opened. Aya's breath caught in her throat. Kang Jin-Woo stepped out into the rain like he owned the very ground beneath his feet. At 42, he was somehow more devastating than when she'd left him 5 years ago. His black suit was custom-tailored to his lean, muscular frame. His dark hair was swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone, all sharp cheekbones, and that jawline that used to make her lose her train of thought. But it was his eyes that always got her. Those deep brown eyes that could shift from tender to terrifying in a heartbeat. 5 men in matching black suits flanked him. Korean, like him, moving with that same controlled violence he'd taught them. Jin-Woo's gaze found Aya across the cemetery and locked on. Everything else faded. The rain, the mourners, the very air between them seemed to catch fire. He walked toward her with measured steps, and the crowd parted for him the way oceans parted for gods. People whispered. They knew who he was. In Chicago's underworld, Kang Jin-Woo was a legend. The ghost of soul. The man who'd taken over the Biko organization and turned it into an empire. "Ayanna," he said when he reached her, his accent wrapping around her name like a caress. "You weren't invited," she replied, her voice steady despite the way her heart slammed against her ribs. "You didn't tell me our daughter was dead." His voice was soft, but there was something dangerous underneath. Something that made Marcus shift into a protective stance. "You lost the right to that call 5 years ago when I walked away." Jin-Woo's expression didn't change, but his eyes darkened. "I never signed the papers, Ayanna. In the eyes of the law and in the eyes of the gods, you are still my wife." Before Aya could respond, Marcus stepped forward. "This is a funeral. Show some respect and leave." Jin-Woo's gaze slid to Marcus with the kind of attention a lion gives a mouse. "Agent Pierce, your sister and I have business to discuss. This doesn't concern you. Everything concerning my sister concerns me." "Gentlemen," Detective Chun interrupted, her hand moving subtly toward her concealed weapon. "This is neither the time nor the place." Jin-Woo's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You're right, Detective. We should pay our respects." He moved past them toward the casket, and his men followed like shadows. Aya watched him approach Naomi's casket. Watched as this man, this dangerous, violent man she'd once loved with her entire soul, placed a single white chrysanthemum on the polished wood. watched as his hand lingered there, his head bowing in a moment of genuine grief that made her chest ache. He spoke in Korean, words too soft for anyone but the dead to hear. Then the first shot rang out. Glass shattered. Someone screamed. Marcus had his weapon drawn before the echo faded, his training kicking in as he positioned himself in front of Aya. But Jin-Woo was faster. He crossed the distance between them in 3 strides, his body slamming into Aya's and taking them both to the ground. He covered her completely, his chest pressed against her back, one hand cradling her head while bullets tore through the air where she'd been standing seconds before. Stay down, he growled against her ear, his breath hot on her neck. His men returned fire with military precision. The funeral dissolved into chaos. People ran, screaming. Marcus was shouting commands into his radio. Somewhere, tires squealed, and Aya lay beneath Jin-Woo's body, feeling every hard line of him pressed against her, smelling that familiar scent of sandalwood and danger that used to cling to their sheets. "They're here for you," he said, his lips brushing her ear in a way that was absolutely not appropriate given the circumstances. "Someone wants my wife dead. I'm not your wife anymore," she managed, even though her voice shook. "Your heart is racing." His hand was still in her hair, gentle despite everything. "But not from fear. You remember this? Us. The way I used to cover your body with mine." Before she could respond, he was lifting her, moving with that impossible speed of his. His men formed a protective circle as he carried her toward his SUV. "Put me down." Aya struggled against his hold, very aware of how easily he controlled her movement. "When you're safe." He slid into the back of the vehicle with her, pulling her onto his lap as the door slammed shut. The SUV was already moving, speeding away from the cemetery while gunfire still echoed behind them. Aya tried to scramble off his lap, but his arm was an iron band around her waist. "Let go of me." "No." Simple. Final. His chin rested on her shoulder, his breath steady against her neck while hers came in panicked gasps. "You can't just kidnap me. I just saved your life." His voice held a hint of amusement that made her want to scream. "You're welcome. Those bullets were meant for you, not me. Everything dangerous in my life traces back to you." His arm tightened fractionally. "Those bullets had your name on them, Yobo. Trust me, I know the difference." That endearment. "Honey." He had no right to call her that anymore. "Where are you taking me?" "Somewhere they can't reach you." His hand moved to her hip, settling there like he had every right. Like 5 years of separation meant nothing. "Home. I have a home. It's not with you. We'll see about that." The ride took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of Aya hyper-aware of every place their bodies touched, of the way his thumb traced absent patterns on her hip, of how her body remembered him even though her mind knew better. When the SUV finally stopped, they were in front of a sleek high-rise in downtown Chicago, the kind of building that cost more than most people made in a lifetime. Jin-Woo finally released her, stepping out and extending his hand to help her down. She ignored it, climbing out on her own, but her legs were unsteady from adrenaline and grief and his proximity. He caught her elbow when she swayed. "Careful. Don't touch me. I've done more than touch you, Ayanna. I've had every inch of you, owned every breath. Don't pretend you've forgotten." Heat flooded her face, and she jerked away from him. His quiet laugh followed her into the building. The penthouse took up the entire top floor. Aya stepped into a space that was somehow both modern and traditional. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of Chicago that took her breath away. Korean art pieces decorated the walls alongside contemporary furniture. Everything was tasteful, expensive, and completely Jin-Woo. "Your room is upstairs," he said, shrugging out of his jacket. "Second door on the right." "My room? I'm not staying here." He turned to face her fully, and the look in his eyes made her step back. "Yes, you are. Someone just tried to kill you at our daughter's funeral. Until I find out who and why, you stay where I can protect you." "By making me your prisoner?" "By making sure you live long enough for us to have the conversation we should have had 5 years ago." He moved closer, and Aya found herself backing up until her shoulders hit the window. He followed, placing one hand on the glass beside her head, caging her in without actually touching her. "You walked away from me," he said softly, his face inches from hers. "You left our bed, our home, our life. You divorced me in every way except legally. And you know what I did, Ayanna? She couldn't speak, could barely breathe. I waited. I stayed faithful. I built an empire and destroyed my enemies and became the monster you accused me of being. But every night, I slept alone in a bed that was too cold without you. Every morning, I woke up reaching for a woman who wasn't there. 5 years, Yobo. 5 years of waiting for you to remember that you belong to me. I don't belong to anyone, she whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. His smile was dark. Knowing. Your body disagrees. I can see your pulse racing right here. His finger traced her throat, just barely touching. I can smell your perfume. The same one you wore when we first met. You never changed it. Why is that? Because it reminded her of him. Because some part of her had never really let go. Jin-Woo. She started, but didn't know how to finish. Go rest, he said, finally stepping back. We have a lot to discuss, but you've had a terrible day. Your room has everything you need. If you need me, I'll be in my office. He walked away before she could respond, leaving her trembling against the window. What do you think happens next? Drop a comment and let me know if you're Team Jin-Woo or Team Run Far Away. Aya stood at the window for a long time after he left, watching the city lights flicker to life as evening fell. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass. She looked lost. Finally, she forced herself to move. Up the stairs, second door on the right. She opened it and froze. The room was perfect. Not decorated like a guest room, but like it had been designed specifically for her. The bed was piled with pillows in shades of cream and gold that she loved. There was a reading nook by the window with her favorite kind of chair. The art on the walls was all pieces she'd admired in galleries over the years. And when she opened the closet, her breath caught. Clothes in her exact size hung in neat rows. Not just any clothes. Her style. Her colors. Dresses she would have picked for herself. Comfortable pants and elegant blouses. Even pajamas in the soft fabrics she preferred. In the bathroom, she found skincare products. Her brands. Her shades of makeup. He'd created a space for her. Not just a room. A home. The realization made her knees weak, and she sat on the edge of the bed, hands shaking. This wasn't the room of a man who'd moved on. This was the room of a man who'd been waiting. Hoping. Preparing for her return. What had she done? Sleep didn't come easily. Every time Aya closed her eyes, she saw Naomi's casket. Saw Jin-Woo covering her body with his. Felt his hand cradling her head, gentle even in violence. When dawn finally broke, she dragged herself out of bed and showered, dressing in dark jeans and a soft sweater from the closet. Everything fit perfectly because of course it did. She found Jin-Woo in his office, standing in front of a massive board covered in photographs and notes. He'd changed into casual clothes, dark pants and a fitted t-shirt that showed off the lean muscle she remembered running her hands over. He didn't turn when she entered, but his voice indicated he'd known she was there. I've been tracking Naomi's investigation for the last 3 weeks. Aya moved closer, her eyes scanning the board. Photos of her daughter. Crime scene reports. Names she recognized from Chicago's political elite. The moment I heard she died, I called in every favor I had. Jin-Woo continued. Detective Chun has been feeding me information. Your brother has too, though he doesn't know it. Marcus would never work with you. He doesn't know he is. I have people in the FBI who owe me. They pass information without knowing who it goes to. He finally turned to face her, and the exhaustion in his eyes surprised her. Our daughter was investigating human smuggling. Specifically, women and children being brought into the country through Chicago's ports. Aya's legal mind kicked in, pushing past grief to analyze. The Kyeonryong faction. They run most of the smuggling operations in the Midwest. Not anymore. I've been systematically dismantling their operations for the last 2 years. But I didn't know they'd branched into human trafficking until Naomi started publishing her exposés. His jaw tightened. She came to see me, 6 months ago. The world tilted. What? She tracked me down. Walked into my office like she owned it. She had your eyes, but my stubborn streak. A ghost of a smile crossed his face before fading. She wanted information about the Kyeonryong. I told her it was too dangerous. I offered her money to stop investigating. She laughed at me. Aya's throat closed. She never told me. I asked her not to. I didn't want to cause you more pain. He turned back to the board. She visited me every month after that. We'd have dinner. She'd tell me about her cases, her life. She talked about you constantly. How proud she was of your work. How you'd taught her to stand up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. Tears burned Aya's eyes. You knew our daughter. For 6 months, I got to be her father. It wasn't enough time. It will never be enough time. His voice cracked on the last word, and something in Aya's chest broke open. She moved without thinking, closing the distance between them. Her hand touched his back, feeling the tension in his muscles. Jin-Woo turned, and the devastation in his eyes destroyed her. I failed her, he whispered. I should have protected her. Should have forced her to stop investigating. Should have locked her somewhere safe like I'm doing with you now. You can't control everything. I should have been able to control this. His hands came up to cup her face, his thumbs brushing away tears. She didn't realize she was crying. She was ours, Ayanna. The best of both of us. And they killed her because she was brave enough to expose them. They stood like that, grief hanging heavy between them. Then Jin-Woo pulled her into his arms, and Aya let him. Let herself lean into his strength for the first time in 5 years. Let herself remember what it felt like to not carry everything alone. His hand moved in slow circles on her back. His chin rested on top of her head, and she could feel his heartbeat, steady and strong against her cheek. I've got you, he murmured in Korean. I'll always have you. The office door opened, breaking the moment. A woman entered, young and beautiful with sharp eyes that went cold when they landed on Aya. Sajangnam, she said to Jin-Woo, her tone professional but her body language possessive. We found the shooter from the cemetery. Jin-Woo stepped back from Aya, his expression shifting from vulnerable to dangerous in a heartbeat. Where? Holding facility. He's not talking yet, but he will. Good. He glanced at Aya. This is Park Ji-hai, my lieutenant. Ji-hai, this is my wife. Ji-hai's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Your estranged wife. My wife, Jin-Woo repeated, his voice dropping to that warning tone Aya remembered. Is there anything else? Detective Chin called. She has evidence from Naomi's apartment. She wants to meet. Set it up for this afternoon. Make sure the location is secure. Ji-hai bowed slightly, her gaze lingering on Aya with barely concealed hostility before she left. She's in love with you, Aya said once they were alone. She's loyal to me. There's a difference. Is there? Jin-Woo moved back into her space, tilting her chin up with one finger. Ji-hai has been my second in command for 3 years. She's efficient, deadly, and completely devoted to the organization. But she is not you. She will never be you. No one will ever be you. His intensity made her mouth go dry, made her remember nights when that focus had been directed at her pleasure, when his hands had mapped every inch of her body like he was memorizing sacred text. Jin-Woo, she breathed, trying to step back. He followed, his hand sliding to the nape of her neck. Say it again. What? My name. You haven't said it properly in 5 years. I want to hear it. This is insane. We can't just pick up where we left off. Why not? His thumb brushed the pulse point below her ear, and her body betrayed her with a shiver. Your heart knows me. Your body knows me. Every breath you take in my presence acknowledges that you're mine. I left because I couldn't watch you become something dark. I was already dark, Yobo. You just chose to stop seeing it. His forehead touched hers, his breath mingling with hers. But you married the darkness anyway. You loved it. You loved me when I was covered in blood and sin. Don't rewrite our history just because it's easier than admitting you still want me. God help her, but he was right. Standing this close to him, feeling the heat of his body and the intensity of his focus, she couldn't deny the truth. She'd never stopped wanting him. Not really. Not in the ways that mattered. I won't apologize for protecting myself, she said, proud that her voice didn't shake. And I won't apologize for waiting for you. His lips brushed her forehead, gentle despite the possessive hold he had on her. But we're done running from each other. Done pretending. Our daughter is dead, someone wants you dead, and I'm the only thing standing between you and hell. So you'll stay? You'll let me protect you. And when this is over, we're having the conversation you've been avoiding for 5 years. He released her and stepped back, leaving her cold. Now get ready. We're meeting Detective Chun in 2 hours. And Ayanna. He looked at her over his shoulder. We're something you can move in. If someone tries to kill you again, I want you able to run. The arrogance. The assumption that she'd just obey. It should have made her angry. Instead, It made her feel safer than she had in years. 3 days living in Jin-Woo's penthouse had taught Aya several things. 1. His security was military grade. 2. He had people watching her even when she couldn't see them. 3. Being this close to him was slowly driving her insane. She couldn't stop noticing things. The way he moved through space like he was choreographing violence. How his hands were always gentle with her despite their capability for destruction. The way his eyes tracked her across rooms like she was the most important thing in his world. This morning, she'd gone to her law office for the first time since the funeral. Jin-Woo had insisted on accompanying her, along with 6 of his men. Now he sat in her office like he belonged there, his long legs stretched out, checking his phone while she tried to focus on case files. Her colleague David Torres knocked and entered, his warm smile faltering when he saw Jin-Woo. I didn't realize you had company. David, this is... She hesitated. What was Jin-Woo? Her almost ex-husband? Her current nightmare? The man who made her body hum with awareness every time he looked at her? I'm her husband, Jin-Woo supplied helpfully, his accent making the words sound almost threatening. Kang Jin-Woo. David's eyes widened in recognition. Everyone in Chicago's legal community knew that name. I see. I just wanted to check on you. Make sure you're okay after everything. I'm fine. Thank you for asking. David moved closer, his hand settling on her shoulder in a gesture of comfort. If you need anything at all, I'm here. The temperature in the room dropped. Jin-Woo stood with that fluid grace that made Aya's stomach flip. He moved to stand beside her desk, his hand coming to rest possessively on her lower back. My wife has everything she needs, he said, his tone pleasant but his eyes deadly. But thank you for your concern, Mr. Torres. David removed his hand from Aya's shoulder quickly. Of course. I'll let you get back to work. He left faster than was strictly professional. The moment the door closed, Aya turned on Jin-Woo. That was unnecessary. Was it? He leaned against her desk, arms crossed. He wants to sleep with you. He's a colleague. He's a man who looks at you like he's imagining you naked. I saw it in his eyes. He's probably been waiting for an opportunity to comfort you. Jin-Woo's jaw tightened. Did he? While we were separated. Did you let him touch you? That's none of your business. How many men, Ayanna? He moved closer, backing her chair toward the wall. How many men have touched what belongs to me? None. The word burst out before she could stop it. None, okay? Are you happy now? Something dangerous and satisfied flashed in his eyes. No men in 5 years. No, not even dates. A few. Nothing that went anywhere. He braced his hands on the arms of her chair, caging her in. Why? Because. She couldn't look at him. Couldn't admit this truth. Because you're mine. His voice was rough silk. Because every man you met, you compared to me. Every touch felt wrong. Every kiss was empty. Wasn't it? Damn him for being right. You're so arrogant. I'm right. His hand cupped her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze. 5 years, and you've been as faithful as I have. Your body knows who it belongs to. Your heart knows. Everything in you knows. This doesn't mean anything. It means everything. His thumb brushed her lower lip, and heat shot through her body. It means we're not done. We never were. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression hardened. Lee Sang-min wants to meet. Aya's blood ran cold. Lee Sang-min, head of the Chongryong faction, the man most likely responsible for Naomi's death. When? Tonight. Neutral ground. Jin-Woo's eyes met hers. I'm going alone. Like hell you are. If he killed our daughter, I deserve to look him in the eye. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. I'm a civil rights attorney who's taken on corrupt politicians and crooked cops. I'm not afraid of some gangster. You should be afraid of this one. Jin-Woo's hand slid into her hair, his grip firm but not painful. Sang-min is calculating and cruel. He won't hesitate to use you against me. Then we'll have to make sure he doesn't get the chance. They stared at each other, wills clashing. Finally, Jin-Woo's lips curved into something that might have been admiration. You're going to be the death of me. Better me than your enemies. His laugh was quiet and dark. Come here. He pulled her from the chair, his arms wrapping around her in a hold that felt more like need than possession. His face buried in her hair, breathing her in. Promise me something, he murmured against her temple. What? Promise me you'll stay close to me tonight. No matter what happens. No matter what he says. You stay where I can reach you. The vulnerability in his voice undid her. This wasn't the crime boss giving orders. This was the man who'd held her through nightmares, who'd made her coffee exactly the way she liked it, who'd once told her she was his reason for breathing. I promise. His arms tightened. Then he released her, stepping back and rebuilding that wall of control. We leave at 7. We're something elegant but practical. And Ayanna. His eyes held hers. Whatever happens tonight, remember that I love you. I've always loved you, even when you hated me for it. He left her standing there, heart racing and mind spinning. How had she ever thought she could live without this man? The restaurant Sang-min chose was exclusive and private, the kind of place where Chicago's elite made deals over expensive wine. Aya wore a deep burgundy dress that hugged her curves but allowed movement. Jin-Woo had approved with a heated look that made her skin flush. Now they sat across from Lee Sang-min, and Aya understood why Jin-Woo had been worried. Sang-min was handsome in a cold, refined way. Late 40s, perfectly groomed, wearing a suit that cost more than most cars. But his eyes were dead, calculating, like he viewed people as chess pieces to be moved and sacrificed. "Mrs. Kang," he said, his English accented but smooth. "You're even more beautiful than your photographs." Jin-Woo's hand found Aya's thigh under the table, his grip possessive. "Her name in your mouth is already too familiar. Get to the point." Sang-min smiled. "Direct as always, Jin-Woo." "Very well. I have a proposition for you. I'm not interested in anything you're selling. Not even your wife's safety." The air went arctic. Jin-Woo leaned forward, and Aya saw the predator beneath his civilized surface. "Explain." "Carefully. Your lovely wife has made enemies. Her civil rights work, her connections to law enforcement, her daughter's investigations." Sang-min sipped his wine delicately. "She's a liability to many powerful people. People who've hired me to resolve the situation. And you thought bringing me here to tell me this was wise." Jin-Woo's voice was conversational, but his hand on Aya's leg had tightened to the point of pain. "I'm offering you a choice. Walk away from her. Let nature take its course. I'll make sure you're compensated for your loss. Or," Jin-Woo's smile was terrifying, "or continue protecting her, and when she inevitably dies, watch your empire crumble as I expose every illegal operation you've been running. The FBI is already suspicious. I have evidence that would put you away for life." Aya felt Jin-Woo's entire body coil like a spring. His killing intent filled the space between them, so thick she could taste it. "You made a mistake coming here," Jin-Woo said softly. "Did I? You're outnumbered. My men surround this building. If I don't walk out of here, you both die tonight. Then we'll die together." Jin-Woo's hand moved from Aya's leg to her hand, lacing their fingers together. "But you'll die first." Sang-min's composure cracked slightly. "You'd throw everything away for her. I'd burn the world for her. What's one more body on that pyre?" Aya squeezed Jin-Woo's hand. Her voice, when she spoke, was steady. "You killed my daughter." Sang-min's attention shifted to her. The girl was collateral damage. She was investigating people too powerful to expose. Her death was inevitable. "You're wrong." Aya leaned forward, and something in her expression made Sang-min's eyes narrow. "Naomi exposed everything before she died. Her research is with multiple news outlets, law enforcement agencies, and human rights organizations. Her death just made it more legitimate, more newsworthy. You didn't silence her. You amplified her." For the first time, Sang-min looked uncertain. "And as for me being a liability?" Aya's smile was sharp. "I'm a civil rights attorney with connections to every major news organization in the country. If something happens to me, especially now, after my daughter's murder, the scrutiny you'd face would destroy you faster than any evidence Jin-Woo could provide. She's magnificent, isn't she?" Jin-Woo's voice held pride and possession in equal measure. "This is why I married her. Why I'll never let her go. She's smarter than both of us combined." Sang-min stood abruptly. "This isn't over." "Yes," Jin-Woo said, standing as well. "It is." In one fluid motion, Jin-Woo had a knife at Sang-min's throat. The restaurant staff scattered. Guns appeared in the hands of both men's security teams. It was a standoff that could turn into a bloodbath in seconds. "Leave Chicago," Jin-Woo said, his voice deadly calm. "Leave the country if you're smart. Because if I see you again, if I even hear your name again, I will take everything you love and burn it to ashes." and then I'll come for you. You're starting a war you can't win. I've already won. I have her. Jin-Woo's eyes never left Sang-min's face. What do you have? The knife pressed slightly deeper, and a bead of blood appeared on Sang-min's neck. Touch her. Think about her. Breathe in her direction. Jin-Woo's words were measured and final. And I will dismantle everything you've built. Every operation, every connection, every dollar you've hidden away. I will make you poor, powerless, and pathetic. And then, when you have nothing left, I'll let you live just so you can suffer. Aya stood, moving to Jin-Woo's side. Her hand touched his arm, gentle. We're leaving, she said quietly. Jin-Woo held Sang-min's gaze for another long moment before releasing him. He took Aya's hand and walked her toward the exit, his men forming a protective circle around them. Behind them, Sang-min's voice carried across the restaurant. She'll be your downfall, Jin-Woo. That weakness will cost you everything. Jin-Woo didn't even turn around. She's my everything. The cost is irrelevant. In the SUV, speeding away from the restaurant, Aya finally let herself shake. The adrenaline crash hit hard, and Jin-Woo pulled her against his side immediately. You were incredible in there, he murmured, his lips against her hair. I thought he was going to kill you. He was going to try. I wouldn't have let him succeed. Not when I finally have you back. She turned to look at him, and the intensity in his eyes stole her breath. Jin-Woo, I meant what I said. You're my everything. If choosing you means losing my empire, I choose you. If it means war with every faction in Chicago, I choose you. If it means death. His hand cupped her face. I choose you. The words hung between them, loaded with 5 years of separation and grief and desperate longing. We can't just ignore everything that went wrong between us. We won't, but we can't ignore this either. His thumb brushed her lips. Tell me you don't feel it. Tell me your heart doesn't race when I'm near. Tell me you don't dream about my hands on your skin. She couldn't. They'd be lies. This is insane. Love usually is. He kissed her then, not asking permission, just claiming her mouth like he had every right. And damn her traitorous body, but she kissed him back. 5 years of denial and loneliness poured into that kiss. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer even as her mind screamed that this was a mistake. His kiss was demanding, possessive, and achingly familiar. His hand slid into her hair, angling her head for deeper access. His other hand gripped her hip, pulling her practically into his lap despite the seat belt. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jin-Woo pressed his forehead to hers. I've waited 5 years to kiss you again. We're going to regret this. Maybe, but I'd rather regret being with you than regret staying away. His hands framed her face, thumbs brushing away tears she didn't realize were falling. Stay with me tonight. Not in separate rooms. Not pretending we're strangers. Just stay. Every rational thought told her to say no. To maintain boundaries. To protect herself from the inevitable pain. But grief and desire and 5 years of loneliness made her reckless. Okay, she whispered. His eyes darkened with heat and relief. Okay. The penthouse felt different when they arrived, charged with possibility and danger. Jin-Woo's hand stayed on her lower back as they rode the elevator up, his touch burning through the fabric of her dress. Inside, he poured them both whiskey, the good kind that tasted like smoke and promises. They stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at Chicago's glittering skyline, not touching but aware of every breath between them. I rebuilt everything after you left, Jin-Woo said quietly. Made the organization more powerful, more profitable, more feared. I thought if I became untouchable, the pain would stop. It didn't. Aya sipped her whiskey, the burn grounding her. I threw myself into work. Took the hardest cases. The ones everyone else refused. I thought if I saved enough people, I could forgive myself for walking away from you. Did it work? No. Every victory felt empty. Every night alone felt like punishment. She turned to face him. I told myself I made the right choice. That your world was too dark, too violent. But the truth is, I was scared. Of me. Of how much I wanted you. Even when I knew I shouldn't. Even when the logical part of my brain said I should run. She set down her glass with shaking hands. You made me feel things that terrified me. Made me want things I thought I shouldn't want. Jin-Woo moved closer, eliminating the space between them. Like what? Like being possessed. Claimed. protected so fiercely that it bordered on obsession. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I was raised to be independent, strong, self-sufficient. And then you came along and made me want to surrender. Made me crave your dominance. Your control. His hand slid up her arm, leaving goosebumps in its wake. That scared you. It still scares me. The way you look at me like you'd kill anyone who touched me. The way you say my name like a prayer and a threat. The way my body responds to you even when I tell it not to. Your body knows what it needs. His lips brushed her ear. It knows that surrender doesn't make you weak. It makes you mine. Her breath hitched. Jin-Woo, I've been patient. I've given you space. But I can't anymore. His teeth grazed her earlobe, and she gasped. I need you. I need to remind your body who it belongs to. Need to erase every lonely night we've spent apart. This is a bad idea. Probably. His hands spanned her waist, pulling her back against his front. But we've both been punished enough. Don't you think? She could feel every hard line of him pressed against her. Could feel his heart pounding against her back. Could feel the barely leashed control in the way his hands trembled slightly on her hips. What if I can't do this? Her voice broke. What if I hurt you again? Then hurt me. Break me. Destroy me. He turned her to face him, and the raw emotion in his eyes made her chest ache. But don't leave me starving for you. Don't make me spend another night reaching for you in my sleep. I can survive anything but your absence. The words shattered her last defense. She kissed him first this time, rising on her toes to reach his mouth. It was desperate and messy and perfect. His groan vibrated against her lips as his arms banded around her, lifting her off her feet. He carried her up the stairs with her legs wrapped around his waist, their mouths never separating. Into his bedroom, not hers. His space, marked with his scent and presence. He set her on her feet beside the massive bed, his hands already finding the zipper of her dress. Tell me to stop. Don't you dare. His smile was wicked as he slid the zipper down, his fingers trailing fire along her spine. The dress pooled at her feet, leaving her in black lace that made his eyes go molten. You wore this for me. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. Yes. Why? Because some part of me knew we'd end up here. Because I wanted you to see me. Want me. Lose control because of me. His laugh was strained. Baby, I lost control the moment I saw you at that funeral. Every second since has been an exercise in restraint. He shed his own clothes with efficient movements, and Aya's mouth went dry. 5 years hadn't diminished his appeal. If anything, he was more devastating. Lean muscle and smooth skin, marked with scars that told stories of violence survived. When he backed her onto the bed, covering her body with his, they both sighed at the contact. Skin on skin. Heat and friction and rightness. I missed this, she breathed. Missed you. Show me. His mouth traced her collarbone, her shoulder, the swell of her breast. Show me I wasn't insane to wait. That you still feel this. She arched into his touch, her hands mapping the planes of his back. I feel it. I never stopped feeling it. What happened next was both familiar and new. He knew her body like he'd written the manual, knew exactly where to touch to make her gasp, where to kiss to make her moan. But there was also reverence now, gratitude, like he understood the gift of her surrender. Time blurred. Hands and mouths, and whispered words in English and Korean. He worshipped her body like she was something holy, even as his touch demanded her complete submission. And she gave it willingly, losing herself in sensation and emotion too long denied. When they finally joined, it felt like coming home and falling apart simultaneously. He moved inside her with devastating precision, watching her face like he could read her soul in her expressions. Look at me, he commanded when her eyes started to drift closed. I want to see you. Want you to see me. Know who's making you feel this way. She locked eyes with him, and the intensity nearly destroyed her. This wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual, a reconnection on every level that mattered. I love you, he groaned against her throat. Never stopped. Never will. I love you too, she gasped, the admission torn from her as pleasure built to impossible heights. Always. Even when I shouldn't. They shattered together, his name on her lips and hers on his. 5 years of separation dissolving in shared ecstasy. Afterward, wrapped in his arms with the sheets tangled around them, Aya felt peace for the first time since Naomi's death. Jin-Woo's hand traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder, his breathing evening out into something close to contentment. "Don't leave me again," he murmured into her hair. "Whatever happens, whatever challenges we face, promise me you'll stay." She should have been cautious, should have protected herself. But lying there in his arms, feeling safe and cherished and completely claimed, she couldn't imagine being anywhere else. "I promise." His arms tightened around her. "I'm going to hold you to that." They fell asleep tangled together, and for the first time in 5 years, neither of them reached for someone who wasn't there. Morning came too soon. Aya woke to find Jin-Woo already dressed, standing at the window with his phone pressed to his ear. His tone was clipped, dangerous, speaking rapid Korean that she couldn't quite follow. When he hung up, his expression was grim. "What's wrong?" He turned, and his eyes softened when they landed on her wrapped in his sheets. He came to sit on the edge of the bed, his hand cupping her face. "Sangmin has your brother." The world stopped. "What?" "Marcus was taken from his apartment 2 hours ago. FBI is already investigating, but Sangmin sent me a message. He wants a trade." Aya's blood ran cold. "Me for Marcus?" "Yes." "Then we do it." "Absolutely not." Jin-Woo's voice was steel. "I won't sacrifice you. He's my brother. He's all the family I have left." She pushed out of bed, grabbing clothes without caring they were Jin-Woo's. "We can't just leave him." "We won't." He stood, blocking her frantic movements. "But we're not giving Sangmin what he wants either. We're going to get Marcus back and eliminate this threat permanently." "How?" His smile was predatory. "By making Sangmin think he's won, right up until the moment I destroy him." 6 hours later, Aya found herself in an abandoned warehouse on Chicago's South Side. The kind of place where bad things happened and nobody asked questions. Jin-Woo's men surrounded the perimeter, armed and ready. Detective Chun and a team of FBI agents were positioned outside, waiting for Jin-Woo's signal. Inside, Marcus sat tied to a chair, his face bruised but his eyes defiant. Sangmin stood behind him with a gun pressed to his temple, flanked by a dozen armed men. "Mrs. Kang," Sangmin called out when Aya and Jin-Woo entered. "So good of you to come. And you brought your attack dog. How sweet." Jin-Woo's hand on Aya's lower back was the only sign of his tension. Otherwise, he looked relaxed, dangerous in his casualness. "Let him go," Aya said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "This is between you and me." "Oh, it's so much bigger than that now." Sangmin's smile was ugly. "Your husband has made a lot of enemies. Taking you sends a message to all of them that the ghost of Seoul isn't untouchable, that his weakness can be exploited." "I'm not his weakness," Aya said quietly. "I'm his reason." Jin-Woo's hand tightened on her back fractionally, acknowledgement and agreement. "How touching. But it doesn't change the outcome. Step forward, Mrs. Kang. Your brother goes free when you're in my custody." Aya started to move, but Jin-Woo's grip held her in place. "One condition," he said. "You let me say goodbye to my wife properly." Sangmin laughed. "How romantic." "Fine. Say your goodbyes. It'll make watching her die all the more satisfying." Jin-Woo turned Aya to face him, his body blocking her from view of their audience. His hands cupped her face, and his eyes held hers with burning intensity. "Trust me," he whispered, so quietly only she could hear. "When I move, you drop. Understand?" She barely nodded, her heart thundering. Then he kissed her, deep and claiming and completely inappropriate given the circumstances. But his hands moved as he kissed her, and she felt him slip something small and hard into the waistband of her pants at the small of her back. A gun. When he pulled back, his smile was tender. "I love you. Remember that." Before she could respond, everything happened at once. Jin-Woo moved with that impossible speed, pulling a weapon from seemingly nowhere. Aya dropped to the ground as he'd instructed. Gunfire erupted. Marcus, whose bonds had apparently been cut at some point, rolled behind cover. The warehouse exploded into chaos as Jin-Woo's men burst through every entrance simultaneously. FBI agents swarmed in, weapons drawn and shouting commands. Sangmin grabbed for Aya, but she was already rolling, coming up with the gun Jin-Woo had given her. She didn't have his training, but she'd spent enough time at shooting ranges to know how to handle a weapon. "Don't move," she commanded, her aim steady on Sangmin's chest. He froze, calculating. Around them, his men were being subdued by the combined force of FBI agents and Jin-Woo's organization. He was surrounded, outgunned, and out of options. Jin-Woo appeared at Aya's side, covered in blood that probably wasn't his. His weapon was trained on Sang-min with deadly precision. "You made a critical mistake," Jin-Woo said conversationally. "You assumed my wife needed protecting, that she was helpless, fragile. She's a warrior," Marcus added, limping over with Detective Chen supporting him. "Always has been. And you're under arrest," Chen said, producing handcuffs. "For kidnapping a federal agent, attempted murder, human trafficking, and about 15 other charges we've been building." As FBI agents moved in to secure Sang-min, he looked at Aya with something like respect. "You played me. I learned from the best," she said, glancing at Jin-Woo. "Sometimes the only way to beat a monster is to show him you're not afraid to become one yourself." Sang-min was led away in cuffs, shouting threats that no one paid attention to. His men were being processed and arrested. The warehouse was secured. Jin-Woo pulled Aya into his arms, his face buried in her hair. She could feel him shaking, the adrenaline and fear finally catching up. "Don't ever scare me like that again," he growled. "You gave me a gun and told me to drop. I should be the one who's scared. You were magnificent." He pulled back to look at her, and the pride in his eyes made her chest tight. "Absolutely magnificent." Marcus cleared his throat. "As touching as this is, we need to get statements. And I need medical attention. And someone needs to explain to me why my sister is dating Chicago's most notorious crime boss." "Married," Jin-Woo corrected, not taking his eyes off Aya. "She's married to Chicago's most notorious crime boss. There's a difference." "Jesus Christ," Marcus muttered. But when Aya looked at her brother, she saw resignation and grudging acceptance on his bruised face. "We'll talk," she promised him. "Oh, we'll definitely talk. But first." Marcus limped over and pulled her into a careful hug. "I'm glad you're okay. And I'm glad you have someone willing to burn the world down to keep you safe. Even if he terrifies me. I should terrify you," Jin-Woo said pleasantly. "It means you're smart." The next 2 weeks were a blur of statements, investigations, and revelations. Sang-min's arrest had triggered a domino effect, with multiple crime families and corrupt officials being taken down. Naomi's research, combined with evidence the FBI had been gathering, created an airtight case against dozens of people. Aya spent her days in court and police stations, her nights tangled up with Jin-Woo, rediscovering what they'd lost and building something new. He was different now, still dangerous, still possessive, but more open, more vulnerable with her. "I'm going legitimate," he told her one night as they lay in bed. "Transitioning all my operations to legal businesses. Your brother convinced me that being a target isn't worth it when I have you to protect." "Marcus convinced you?" "He said if I truly loved you, I'd give you a life where you didn't have to choose between me and your principles." Jin-Woo's hand splayed possessively over her stomach. He was right. "That's going to be dangerous. Your people might see it as weakness. Let them try." His smile was sharp. "I've already started consolidating power. Those who won't follow the new direction are being encouraged to find opportunities elsewhere." "Encouraged how?" "You don't want to know." She probably didn't. 20 days after Naomi's funeral, Aya stood in front of her daughter's grave. The headstone was simple but elegant, exactly what Naomi would have wanted. Jin-Woo stood beside her, his hand warm and steady in hers. "I'm sorry we weren't there to protect you," Aya whispered. "I'm sorry I kept you from your father. Sorry you had to face the darkness alone." "She wasn't alone," Jin-Woo said quietly. "She knew I was watching over her. And she knew you loved her. That's what matters." "Is it enough?" "It has to be." They stood in silence, grief still raw but no longer quite as sharp. Aya thought about the weeks ahead. The trials. The transition Jin-Woo was planning. The life they were trying to rebuild. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Scared this won't work. That we'll fall apart again. We might." Jin-Woo turned her to face him. "We'll argue. We'll disagree. We'll drive each other crazy. But we won't run. Not anymore. We face everything together. Promise. I promise. For better or worse, remember? We said those vows. Let's finally honor them." She kissed him there in the cemetery, surrounded by death, but choosing life. Choosing love. Choosing the complicated, messy, dangerous reality of being with a man who would kill for her and die for her in equal measure. When they finally pulled apart, Jin-Woo rested his forehead against hers. "Take me home," she whispered. "Which home? Yours or mine?" "Ours." His smile was brilliant and rare and entirely hers. "Ours." I like the sound of that. 3 weeks turned into 3 months. Jin-Woo's transition to legitimate business was brutal and bloody in ways Aya tried not to think about too deeply. Men who refused to adapt disappeared. Deals were made with federal prosecutors that gave immunity in exchange for testimony. The Biko organization transformed from a crime syndicate into a sprawling network of legal enterprises. Through it all, Aya and Jin-Woo built something solid. They fought, passionately and often. She called him out when he slipped into old patterns of violence. He pushed her when she tried to retreat into emotional distance. But they always came back to each other. Marcus, surprisingly, became an ally. He and Jin-Woo developed a grudging respect built on shared purpose, protecting Aya and honoring Naomi's legacy. They established a foundation in Naomi's name, dedicated to exposing human trafficking and supporting survivors. Detective Chin became a regular presence in their lives, her initial suspicion giving way to something like friendship. She kept them updated on cases, helped navigate the legal complexities of Jin-Woo's transformation, and occasionally joined them for dinners that were surprisingly normal. Ji-Hai, after a tense confrontation where she'd accused Aya of making Jin-Woo weak, had requested a transfer to their Seoul operations. Jin-Woo had granted it with what looked like relief. "She'll do better there," he'd told Aya. "She's brilliant, but she couldn't separate her feelings from business. Seoul needs that kind of intensity." 6 months after Naomi's funeral, Aya woke to an empty bed. She found Jin-Woo in his office, staring at the investigation board that still held their daughter's photo. "Can't sleep?" she asked, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Just thinking about her. Wondering if she'd be proud of what we're doing." "She would be. You're fighting the same battles she fought, just in a different way. I wish she could see it. Wish she could know we're together again." Aya tightened her hold. "I think she knew. Those visits she paid you? She was checking on you for me. Making sure you were okay. Making sure you hadn't moved on." Jin-Woo turned in her arms, surprise evident on his face. "You knew about the visits?" "She told me. Not at first, but eventually. She said you seemed lonely, that you asked about me constantly, that you kept a photo of us on your desk. I still do." He gestured to the frame sitting on his desk. Them on their wedding day, Aya laughing at something he'd whispered, his expression full of adoration. "She played matchmaker from beyond the grave," Aya said softly. "Got us both to her funeral, knowing we'd have to face each other. Knowing you'd protect me when things went wrong. Smart girl. Manipulative, but smart. She got it from you." His laugh was quiet and pained and full of love. "She got it from both of us. The best of both of us." They stood together in the dark office, holding each other, remembering the daughter they'd lost and the future they were building in her honor. 1 year after Naomi's death, Aya and Jin-Woo hosted the first annual gala for the Naomi Kang Foundation. The event was held at a gallery in downtown Chicago, attended by politicians, activists, celebrities, and reformed criminals who'd found legitimate paths forward. Aya wore a stunning gown that Jin-Woo had commissioned specifically for the night, deep emerald that brought out the warmth in her brown skin. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, his hand never far from her body, that possessive touch that still made her stomach flip. "Thank you all for coming," Aya said in her speech, Jin-Woo standing just behind her, solid and supportive. "My daughter gave her life fighting for justice. Tonight, we honor that sacrifice by committing ourselves to the same fight. To protecting the vulnerable, to exposing corruption, to making sure no other young woman has to die for speaking truth to power." The applause was thunderous. Donations poured in. Survivors shared their stories, their voices strong and grateful. Marcus found Aya during a quiet moment, pulling her aside with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You did good, sis. Naomi would be proud. We did good. This wouldn't exist without your support." Speaking of support, Marcus glanced at Jin-Woo, who was across the room discussing something with Detective Chun. "How are things?" "Really? They're good. Great, actually. We're talking about making things official again. Renewing our vows. After everything, you still want to be married to him? He's not the same man I left. And I'm not the same woman who ran." Aya watched Jin-Woo, love and desire and deep affection warming her chest. We've both changed, grown, faced our darkness, and chosen to step into light. Together. He'll always be dangerous, Aya. That doesn't just go away. I know. But his danger protects people now. Protects me. Protects the foundation and everyone we're trying to help. She met her brother's eyes. I've spent my whole life fighting for justice within the system. Jin-Woo showed me that sometimes you have to work outside it too. We balance each other. Marcus sighed, but he pulled her into a hug. As long as you're happy. That's all I want. I am. Happier than I've been in years. Then I guess I'm stuck with him as a brother-in-law. Afraid so. Could be worse. At least he's competent. And terrifying. Nobody's going to mess with our family now. Aya laughed, the sound free and genuine. No, they're really not. Later that night, back at the penthouse, Jin-Woo slowly removed Aya's gown with reverent hands. You were perfect tonight, he murmured against her skin. Commanding and elegant, and so beautiful it hurt to look at you. Careful. Compliments like that might go to my head. Good. You should know how extraordinary you are. He kissed along her collarbone, her shoulder, the curve of her neck. How you've changed my entire world just by existing in it. She turned in his arms, her hands sliding up his chest to loop around his neck. I love you. The man you were, the man you are, the man you're becoming. All of it. I love you. More than I thought possible to love anything. You're my redemption and my reason. They made love slowly that night, savoring each touch, each sigh, each whispered declaration. And afterward, wrapped in each other with the city lights painting shadows across their skin, they talked about the future. I want to make it official again, Jin-Woo said. A real ceremony this time. Your brother walking you down the aisle. Our friends and family witnessing us recommit to each other. A do-over? A new beginning. Acknowledging everything we've been through and choosing each other anyway. Aya kissed him softly. Yes, let's do it. His smile was incandescent. Yeah. I want to be your wife. Officially, publicly, permanently. I want the world to know I chose you, and you chose me, and nothing will separate us again. Nothing, he agreed fiercely. Not danger, not doubt, not death itself. That's very dramatic. I'm a dramatic man. You knew that when you married me the first time. She laughed against his lips, joy bubbling up from somewhere deep and true. I really did. And I'm choosing it again. Best decision you'll ever make. Second best. The first was not killing you when you showed up at Naomi's funeral and turned my entire life upside down. His laugh rumbled through his chest. Fair point. They fell asleep tangled together, planning a future that once seemed impossible, grateful for second chances and stubborn love that refused to die. 2 years after Naomi's death, Ayanna Pierce Kang stood in a garden ceremony, surrounded by everyone she loved. Marcus walked her down the aisle, his pride evident despite his lingering wariness of her groom. Detective Chun served as a bridesmaid, her weapon discreetly holstered under her elegant dress. Ji-hai had flown in from Seoul, her expression peaceful as she watched her former boss find happiness. And at the end of the aisle stood Kang Jin-Woo, looking at Aya like she was the sun and he'd been living in darkness without her. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. They wrote their own vows, speaking truths that made more than one guest tear up. I vow to choose you every day, Aya said, her voice steady despite her tears. In darkness and in light. In fear and in peace. When you're the man I fell in love with, and when you're the monster you sometimes have to be. I choose all of you forever. I vow to be worthy of you, Jin-Woo said, his accent thick with emotion. To protect you without caging you. To love you without consuming you. To walk beside you as your equal and your partner. And when I fail, because I will fail, I vow to get back up and try again. Because you're worth every effort, every sacrifice, every breath in my body. When they kissed, it was to thunderous applause and more than a few wolf whistles. The reception was held at the gallery that housed the foundation's offices, surrounded by photos of the people they'd helped and the work they'd accomplished. It was a celebration of life and love and stubborn hope in the face of tragedy. During their first dance, Jin-Woo held Aya close, his lips at her ear. Are you happy? Deliriously. Terrifyingly. Completely. Good. Because I plan to spend the rest of my life keeping you exactly this happy. That's a big promise. I'm a man who keeps his promises, especially to my wife. My wife. The words still made her stomach flip. I love you, she whispered. I love you more. And before you argue, he said, spinning her slightly, remember that I loved you through 5 years of separation, countless dangerous situations, and your brother's death glares. I win. She laughed, the sound free and full of joy. Fine. You win. I always do. Especially when the prize is you. They danced until late, surrounded by people who'd become family, celebrating a love that had survived death and darkness and doubt. Later, standing on the balcony of their penthouse, Aya leaned against Jin-Woo's chest and looked out at the city they'd both fought to protect. Do you ever regret it? She asked quietly. Giving up your empire for me? Every day. At her stiffening, he tightened his arms around her. I regret every moment I spent building that empire while you weren't in my life. But giving it up? Transforming it into something that makes you proud? That I'll never regret. We've built something good here. We have. The foundation helps hundreds of people every year. My businesses provide legitimate employment and opportunities. We're making a real difference. Naomi would be proud. She is proud. Wherever she is, watching us, she's proud. He turned Aya in his arms, his hands framing her face. We didn't just survive our tragedy, Yobo. We transformed it into purpose. That's her legacy. Aya kissed him, pouring everything she felt into the connection. Gratitude and love and fierce devotion. When they finally pulled apart, Jin-Woo rested his forehead against hers. Ready for the rest of our lives? With you? Always. Even though I'm still impossible, possessive, and occasionally terrifying? Especially because of those things. She smiled against his lips. Someone has to keep Chicago's reformed crime boss in line. And you're volunteering for that job? I already signed up. In front of witnesses. With legally binding vows. His laugh was warm and genuine. Best contract I've ever entered. Same. They stood together on their balcony, the city sprawling below them, the future stretching wide and uncertain, but no longer lonely. Together, they'd face whatever came. Together, they'd honor the daughter they'd lost. Together, they'd build a life worth living. Because some loves were worth fighting for. Some loves were worth dying for. And some loves were worth everything in between. The months that followed their vow renewal were a blur of purpose and passion. The Naomi Kang Foundation expanded its reach, opening offices in 3 more cities. Aya took on high-profile cases that challenged corrupt systems, her reputation as a fearless advocate growing with each victory. Jin-Woo's legitimate business empire flourished, providing jobs and opportunities while maintaining the loyalty of those who'd followed him through his transformation. But it wasn't all work and noble causes. There were quiet mornings wrapped in each other's arms. Late-night conversations about everything and nothing. Stolen kisses in elevators and passionate reunions after days apart. They learned each other again, discovering new depths to their connection, finding joy in the simple act of being together. Marcus became more than just Aya's brother. He became Jin-Woo's friend. Their relationship built on mutual respect and shared protective instincts toward the woman they both loved. They'd meet for drinks, discuss cases, argue about politics, and somehow always end up laughing about something Aya had said or done. She's got both of us wrapped around her finger, Marcus said one night over whiskey. And she knows it, Jin-Woo replied with a smile. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Detective Chin brought them cases that needed their unique combination of legal expertise and street connections. She'd become the bridge between the law enforcement world and Jin-Woo's reformed organization, facilitating partnerships that saved lives and took down the kind of criminals who operated in shadows. You two are the weirdest power couple I've ever seen, she told them during one strategy session. A civil rights attorney and a reformed mafia boss. It shouldn't work, but somehow it does. Love doesn't follow logic, Aya replied, her hand finding Jin-Woo's under the table. Clearly, Chin said with a smile. Ji-Hai sent occasional updates from Seoul, her messages professional but warmer than before. She'd found her place leading the Asian operations, channeling her intensity into building something legitimate and powerful. In one rare personal message, she wrote, "He's happier than I've ever seen him. You were right to fight for each other." The anniversary of Naomi's death came around again. This time, they weren't drowning in grief, but celebrating her life. The foundation hosted a memorial event where survivors shared stories of how Naomi's work had inspired them. Young activists spoke about carrying forward her mission. A scholarship was announced in her name for students pursuing investigative journalism. Aya stood at the podium, Jin-Woo beside her as always, and spoke from her heart. 2 years ago, I lost my daughter. My brilliant, brave, beautiful daughter who believed she could change the world. And in her death, she did exactly that. She brought her father and me back together. She exposed corruption that had thrived in darkness. She inspired a movement that continues to grow. Naomi's light didn't go out when she died. It multiplied. It lives in every person we help, every truth we expose, every life we save. Her voice broke, but Jin-Woo's hand squeezed hers, lending strength. And I know that wherever she is, she's proud. Proud of the foundation. Proud of the changes we've made. Proud that her parents finally figured out what she knew all along. That we were stronger together than we ever were apart. The applause was deafening. Tears flowed freely. And when Aya stepped down from the podium, Jin-Woo pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. She's watching, he whispered in Korean. And she's smiling. I hope so, Aya whispered back. I really hope so. That night, lying in bed with the city lights casting soft shadows across their room, Jin-Woo traced patterns on Aya's bare shoulder. I have something to tell you, he said quietly. She turned to face him, concern flickering across her features. What is it? The Seoul operations. Jihai wants to expand them into legitimate tech development. She's brilliant at it, and the preliminary numbers are incredible. That's good news. It means I need to travel there more often. Spend weeks at a time helping set things up properly. He paused, his eyes searching hers. I want you to come with me. Not for all of it, but some of it. I want to show you where I came from. Introduce you to the parts of my past that shaped me. Aya's heart swelled. This was trust. This was vulnerability. This was him inviting her into every corner of his life. I'd love that, she said softly. When do we leave? His smile was brilliant. Next month. We'll make it a working trip. The foundation could benefit from international connections, and there are organizations in Seoul doing incredible work against human trafficking. Always thinking 10 steps ahead. I learned from the best. He kissed her forehead. Besides, I want to take you to the places I loved as a child. Show you the street markets, the temples, the Han River at sunset. I want you to understand all of me. I already understand you, she said, cupping his face. But I'd love to see those places through your eyes. They made love again that night, slow and tender, a physical conversation of trust and promise and absolute devotion. The trip to Seoul was everything Jin-Woo had promised and more. Aya fell in love with the city's energy, the way ancient traditions existed alongside cutting-edge modernity. She met with activists and lawyers, establishing partnerships that would strengthen the foundation's global reach. But her favorite moments were the personal ones. Jin-Woo taking her to the tiny restaurant where his grandmother used to work, the owner remembering the serious boy who'd grown into a formidable man. Walking along the Han River at sunset, his hand warm in hers, as he told her stories about his childhood dreams and fears. I always knew I'd leave, he said, watching the water reflect the city lights. I was too ambitious, too hungry for power to stay. But I never forgot where I came from. Never forgot the lessons my grandmother taught me about honor and loyalty. She'd be proud of you, Aya said, of the man you've become. I hope so. I hope both our daughters are proud of us. They visited Jihai's operations, and Aya was impressed by what the younger woman had built. Professional, efficient, completely legitimate tech development that was already turning significant profits. You did this in less than a year? Aya asked, reviewing the financials. I had good training, Jihai said, glancing at Jin-Woo, and motivation to prove that the new way works. After the meeting, as they walked back to their hotel, Jin-Woo pulled Aya close. See? Not everyone needs to be dragged into legitimacy kicking and screaming. Unlike you, she teased. Unlike me, he agreed with a laugh. I needed the right motivation. And what was that? He stopped walking, turning her to face him in the middle of the busy Seoul street. People flowed around them like water around stones. You. Always you. Everything I've built, everything I've changed, every choice I've made for the last 3 years has been because of you. Because you're worth being better for. Aya's eyes filled with tears. Jin-Woo. I love you, Ayanna Pierce Kang. In this life, and whatever comes after. You are my redemption and my reason and my everything. She kissed him there on the street, not caring about the stairs or the cameras or anything but the man in her arms who'd chosen love over power, light over darkness, her over everything. They returned to Chicago with new partnerships, renewed purpose, and a deeper understanding of each other. The foundation continued to grow. Jin-Woo's businesses expanded into ethical tech development and sustainable manufacturing. They made enemies, certainly. Changed systems don't surrender power easily. But they also made allies, built coalitions, created change that rippled outward in ways they couldn't always see. Marcus met someone. A fellow agent named Rachel who was smart and funny and didn't intimidate easily. Aya loved her immediately, and Jin-Woo approved, which coming from him was high praise. Your brother deserves happiness, he told Aya after their first double date. He's been taking care of everyone else for too long. Takes one to know one, she replied, kissing his cheek. Detective Chun was promoted to captain, her unorthodox methods and impressive results finally recognized by the department. She credited the partnership with the foundation for much of her success. You two are changing the game, she told them, making it possible to fight corruption from multiple angles. Keep doing what you're doing. 3 years after their vow renewal, Aya stood in their bathroom, staring at a pregnancy test with shaking hands. 2 lines. She was pregnant. The joy was immediate and overwhelming. So was the fear. They'd lost one daughter. Could they risk their hearts on another child? Could they bring a baby into their complicated, sometimes dangerous world? She found Jin-Woo in his office, still working despite the late hour. He looked up when she entered, and his expression immediately shifted to concern. What's wrong? She couldn't speak, just handed him the test. He stared at it for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then he looked up at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes destroyed her. Are you happy? He asked, his voice rough. I'm terrified, she admitted. But yes, so happy I can barely breathe. Are you? He stood, crossing to her in 2 strides, his hands cupping her face with infinite gentleness. Terrified, he echoed, but happier than I have any right to be. His hands moved to her still flat stomach, reverent. A baby. Our baby. We lost Naomi, Aya whispered. What if? We'll protect this one, he interrupted fiercely. With everything we have, everything we are, we're different now. Stronger. Smarter. And this child will grow up in a safer world because of the changes we've made. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll teach them to be good. Not perfect, not soft, but good. Like Naomi was good. I promise. He pulled her into his arms, his face buried in her hair. We'll teach them together. About justice and mercy, strength and compassion. How to fight for what's right without losing yourself in the darkness. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other, marveling at the miracle and the terror of new life. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Aya glowed with it, her curves becoming fuller, her smile more frequent. Jin-Woo was simultaneously overprotective and worshipful, his hands constantly finding her growing belly, his eyes soft whenever he looked at her. Marcus was thrilled to become an uncle again. This kid's going to be spoiled rotten, he warned. Between you two and me and Rachel, they won't stand a chance. Good, Jin-Woo said. They should know they're loved. Always. Detective Chun threw them a baby shower that was somehow both elegant and chaotic. Survivors from the foundation came. Activists and lawyers, reformed criminals and FBI agents, all celebrating the new life that symbolized hope and second chances. Only you two could have a baby shower where half the guests used to be on opposite sides of the law, Chin said with a laugh. We prefer to think of it as building bridges, Aya replied, her hand resting on her very pregnant belly. The baby came on a snowy December night. A daughter, healthy and perfect, with Jin-Woo's eyes and Aya's smile. They named her Hope. Hope Naomi Kang. Jin-Woo held his daughter with trembling hands, tears streaming down his face as he looked at this tiny, perfect being they'd created. Hello, little one, he whispered in Korean. I'm your father, and I promise you, I will spend every day of my life making sure you're safe and loved and free to be whoever you want to be. Aya watched from the hospital bed, her own tears falling, as the man she loved cradled their daughter like she was made of glass and starlight. "She looks like Naomi," Jin-Woo said softly, glancing at Aya. "She looks like hope," Aya replied. "Like second chances and new beginnings." Marcus visited that night, Rachel at his side. He looked at his niece with wonder and a little fear. "She's so small." "She'll grow," Aya assured him. "And she'll have the best uncle in the world." "Damn right she will." Marcus carefully took Hope from Jin-Woo, his expression softening. "Hey there, Hope. I'm your Uncle Marcus. And I've got your back, always." The first few months were exhausting and magical in equal measure. Sleepless nights and endless diaper changes, but also tiny smiles and the weight of hope sleeping on their chests. Jin-Woo was a surprisingly natural father, his dangerous hands infinitely gentle with his daughter. "I never knew I could love something this much," he confessed one night, watching Hope sleep in her crib. "It's terrifying." "I know," Aya said, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "But we've got this. Together." "Together," he agreed, turning to kiss her. "Always together." Hope's first birthday was a celebration that brought together everyone who'd become family. The Foundation's conference room was transformed with decorations, and the guest list read like a who's who of Chicago's most unlikely alliance. As Aya watched her daughter take tentative first steps toward Jin-Woo's outstretched arms, surrounded by people who'd chosen to be family, she felt a profound sense of peace. They'd lost so much, survived so much, but they'd also gained everything that mattered. Love that refused to die, family forged in fire, purpose born from tragedy, and hope, always hope. Jin-Woo caught Hope as she tumbled into his arms, lifting her high and making her giggle with delight. His eyes found Aya's across the room, and in that look was everything: gratitude and love and the promise of forever. She moved to them, and Jin-Woo wrapped his free arm around her, holding both his girls close. "We did good," he murmured against her temple. "We did," she agreed, kissing Hope's chubby cheek. "We really did." Marcus raised his glass across the room. "To family, the ones we're born with and the ones we choose." "To second chances," Detective Chen added. "To hope," Rachel said softly, and everyone echoed it. "To hope." As the celebration continued around them, Aya leaned into Jin-Woo's solid warmth, their daughter babbling happily in his arms, and thought about the journey that brought them here. From a funeral in the rain to this moment of joy. From separation and grief to reunion and healing. From broken to whole. It hadn't been easy. Nothing worth having ever was. But they'd fought for each other, for their love, for the family they'd built from ashes and determination. And they'd won. Not because the darkness disappeared. It never fully did. But because they'd learned to carry light even in the darkest places. Because they'd chosen each other every single day, in big ways and small. Because love, real love, wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up, fighting for what mattered, forgiving mistakes and celebrating victories, building something beautiful out of broken pieces. It was about finding someone who saw all of you, the light and the darkness, the strength and the fear, the beauty and the scars, and choosing you anyway. Jin-Woo kissed the top of her head, his arms tightening around his family. "I love you," he whispered. "Both of you. More than words can say." "We love you too," Aya replied, her heart so full it ached. "Now and always." Hope giggled again, reaching for both of them, her tiny hands connecting them in a circle of love and promise. And in that moment, surrounded by family and laughter and hope, Aya knew that Naomi was watching, smiling, proud of what they'd built from tragedy. They'd honored her memory not just with a foundation or speeches or good works, but by loving fiercely and completely, by refusing to let darkness win, by building a family that would carry forward her legacy of fighting for justice and protecting the vulnerable, by choosing hope, always hope. The years that followed were a testament to the power of transformation. Hope grew from a giggling baby into a curious toddler with her father's determination and her mother's fierce sense of justice. At 3 years old, she already showed signs of the woman she'd become, asking why some children didn't have homes and insisting on sharing her toys with kids at the Foundation's family events. "She's going to change the world," Jin-Woo said one evening, watching Hope carefully distribute cookies to every person at a foundation gathering, making sure the shyest children got the biggest ones. Just like her sister, Aya replied, her hand finding his. Just like her mother, he corrected, pulling her close. The foundation had become a powerhouse of change. 5 years after its founding, it operated in 12 cities across 3 countries. Survivors who'd once been victims now worked as counselors and advocates. Politicians who'd ignored the issues now championed legislation. And the name Naomi Kang had become synonymous with courage and justice. But success brought new challenges. There were still people who preferred the old ways, who saw the foundation's work as a threat to their interests. Security remained tight. Jin-Woo's past meant they could never be completely free of danger. "Does it bother you?" Aya asked him one night after Hope had finally gone to sleep. "That we still have to live with guards and security protocols?" "Every day," he admitted. "I wish I could give you a normal life. PTA meetings and soccer practice without armed escorts. But I wouldn't trade what we've built for anything. The foundation has saved hundreds of lives. My businesses employ thousands of people legitimately. We've created real change." He turned to face her fully. "And I have you. I have hope. I have a family I'd die to protect and a purpose worth living for. You've come a long way from the man who showed up at that funeral. I had good motivation." His smile was soft. "The best motivation." Marcus and Rachel got married in a small ceremony that was equal parts FBI protocol and genuine emotion. Hope was the flower girl, taking her job so seriously that she stopped to correct every petal that wasn't perfectly placed. "Your daughter is a perfectionist," Marcus told Jin-Woo as they watched Hope methodically arrange rose petals. "She gets that from both of us," Jin-Woo replied. "We're doomed. At least she's cute about it. For now, wait until she's a teenager." Marcus actually paled. "Don't wish that on me. I'm barely ready to be married, let alone contemplate teenage nieces." But watching her brother get married, seeing the joy on Marcus's face and the way Rachel looked at him like he hung the moon, made Aya grateful for the family they'd built. Marcus had been alone for so long, dedicated to his work and to protecting her. Now he had someone to protect him, to love him, to build a life with. "He deserves this," Jin-Woo murmured, echoing her thoughts. "So did we," Aya replied. "And we fought for it." "Every day," he agreed. "And I'll keep fighting for it. For you. For Hope. For everything we've built." Detective Chun, now Captain Chun, brought them a case that tested everything they'd learned. A trafficking ring operating out of multiple states, protected by officials at every level. The kind of case that required legal expertise, street intelligence, and connections in both worlds. "This is big," Chin told them at the strategy meeting. "Bigger than anything we've tackled before. It's going to be dangerous, and it's going to attract attention we might not want." "Since when has that stopped us?" Aya asked. "Since you have a 3-year-old daughter to think about." The room went quiet. It was a fair point. The days of Aya and Jin-Woo taking reckless risks were supposed to be behind them. "We'll be smart about it," Jin-Woo said finally. "We'll coordinate with the FBI, use every legal avenue, keep our exposure minimal. But we can't walk away from this. Not when we have the resources and connections to make a difference." "I agree," Aya added. "We just need to be smarter than we used to be." "You two used to be smart," Marcus asked with a grin, lightening the mood. "Could have fooled me. The operation took 6 months. 6 months of careful coordination, strategic moves, and nerve-wracking waits." Jin-Woo's reformed organization provided intelligence. Aya's legal team built airtight cases. The FBI moved in with precision strikes. When it was over, 47 people were arrested, including 2 senators, a judge, and multiple law enforcement officials. More importantly, over 200 victims were freed and given support through the Foundation's programs. But it came at a cost. During one of the raids, Jin-Woo took a bullet meant for an FBI agent. It wasn't life-threatening, but seeing him in that hospital bed, pale and hurting, brought back every fear Aya had ever had about his world. "You said you were being smart," she told him, her voice shaking with anger and relief. "I was. The alternative was letting that agent die. And what about Hope? What about me? What were we supposed to do if—" "I'm fine," he interrupted gently. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." "You can't promise that." Tears streamed down her face. Nobody can promise that. He pulled her as close as his injury allowed. You're right. I can't promise I'll never be in danger. My past doesn't disappear just because I went legitimate. But I can promise that I'll never stop fighting to come home to you. That every risk I take is calculated. That your face and Hope's face are what I see when I decide whether something is worth doing. I can't lose you, she whispered. Not after everything. You won't. I'm too stubborn to die. I have too much to live for. Hope visited that afternoon, Marcus bringing her when visiting hours started. She climbed carefully onto the hospital bed, her small face serious. Daddy hurt? She asked, her hand gentle on his uninjured arm. Just a little, Jin-Woo assured her. I'll be all better soon. Mommy cried. I know, baby. But those were worried tears. Now they're happy tears because I'm okay. Hope studied him with those two old eyes, then nodded. Uncle Marcus says you're a hero. Jin-Woo's gaze found Marcus, who shrugged. It's true. You saved Agent Morrison's life. I'm not a hero, Jin-Woo told Hope. I'm just your dad, and I love you very much. Can be both, Hope said with 3-year-old logic. Mommy says Naomi was hero and sister. The adults in the room went quiet. Hope spoke about Naomi often, as if her older sister was simply away rather than gone. They'd told her stories, shown her pictures, made sure she knew about the sister she'd never meet. Your sister was definitely a hero, Aya said softly. And so is your dad. And Uncle Marcus. And Annie Rachel and Captain Chun and everyone who fights to help people. And you, Mommy, Hope added seriously. You hero too. Jin-Woo's recovery took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of Aya working from their home office, Hope playing quietly nearby, and Jin-Woo going quietly insane from forced inactivity. I'm fine, he insisted for the 100th time. I can go back to work. Doctor says 2 more days. Aya replied without looking up from her case files. You can wait 2 more days. I'm not used to being idle. Consider it practice for retirement. He actually laughed. Retirement? I'm 47, not 70. With the life you've lived, you've earned an early retirement. What would I even do? Spend time with your daughter. Travel with your wife. Maybe take up golf. Golf? His horror was genuine. You want me to play golf? Okay, maybe not golf, but something less likely to get you shot. He caught her hand, pulling her closer. I'll make you a deal. I'll consider taking fewer risks if you'll consider not working 18-hour days. I don't work 18-hour days. You worked 16 hours yesterday. I counted. The case will still be there tomorrow. But Hope won't be 3 forever. I won't be here forever. And the moments we miss don't come back. She knew he was right. The foundation's success meant she was constantly in demand. Important work, meaningful work, but work that took her away from the family she'd fought so hard to build. I'll think about it, she said finally. That's all I ask. The bullet wound healed, leaving another scar on Jin-Woo's body, another story in the map of violence that marked his skin. But it also marked a shift. Both he and Aya started delegating more, trusting the teams they'd built to handle day-to-day operations. They were still involved, still committed, but they were also present. For Hope's preschool performances, for family dinners, for quiet evenings where the most dangerous thing they faced was Hope's bedtime negotiations. 5 more minutes. Hope pleaded, her eyes wide. You said that 20 minutes ago, Jin-Woo pointed out. But this book is really good. It'll still be good tomorrow night. But I won't know what happens to the dragon. Aya watched them negotiate, her heart full. This was Jin-Woo's superpower, the same intensity and focus he'd once used to build an empire now directed at being present for his daughter. He negotiated bedtime with the same seriousness he'd once negotiated territory deals. Okay, he said finally. 1 more chapter. But then sleep, no arguments. Deal. Hope agreed immediately. When the chapter was finished and Hope was finally asleep, Jin-Woo found Aya on the balcony, looking out at the city. She played you, Aya said with a smile. Completely. She's got your negotiation skills. And your stubborn refusal to give up. We're in so much trouble when she's older. So much trouble, Aya agreed. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and they stood there in comfortable silence, watching their city sleep. Do you ever wonder what Naomi would think? Aya asked quietly. About all of this? About Hope? Every day, Jin-Woo admitted. I think she'd love Hope. I think she'd be proud of what we've built. And I think she'd give us hell for taking so long to figure out what she knew all along. That we belong together? That love is worth fighting for. That family isn't just blood, it's choice. That the best way to honor loss is to build something meaningful from it. Aya leaned back against his chest. She was smarter than both of us. Most days, Hope is too, Jin-Woo said with a laugh. We're surrounded by women who are smarter than me. And you love it. Every minute of it. They stood there until the city lights began to blur with approaching dawn, holding each other, grateful for second chances and stubborn love and the family they'd built from ashes and hope. Inside, Hope slept peacefully, dreaming 3-year-old dreams. On the shelf in her room sat photos of the sister she'd never met but would always know through stories and love. In the living room, the Foundation's latest impact report showed hundreds of lives changed, families reunited, systems reformed. And on the balcony, 2 people who'd found their way back to each other stood together, watching the sun rise on another day of their hard-won life. It wasn't perfect. It was messy and complicated and sometimes scary, but it was theirs, and that made it perfect enough. 5 years after Hope's birth, the Pierce Kang family had settled into a rhythm that worked. Hope was in 2nd grade, already showing signs of becoming a formidable force. She'd organized her classmates to collect supplies for families the Foundation helped. She'd lectured a visiting politician about the importance of protecting vulnerable people. She'd inherited the best, and most challenging, traits from both parents. Your daughter told her teacher that laws are only good if they protect everyone, Aya reported one evening. Then she proceeded to cite 3 Supreme Court cases. Jin-Woo looked up from the business report he was reviewing. She's 7. She's our daughter. What did you expect? Fair point. He set aside his work. Though I'm not sure where she learned about Supreme Court cases. She listens when we work. And she asks Marcus questions about everything. Of course she does. She's got your brain and my determination. The world doesn't stand a chance. The Foundation had reached a milestone, its 10th anniversary. A decade of fighting trafficking, supporting survivors, exposing corruption, and creating systemic change. The gala celebrating the anniversary was the biggest event they'd ever hosted. Hope insisted on being involved in the planning. I want to speak, she announced at a family dinner. Speak? Aya asked carefully. At the gala, I want to tell people about Naomi. About why the Foundation matters. Jin-Woo and Aya exchanged glances. Hope was only 7. Public speaking at a major event was a lot to ask of a child. What would you want to say? Jin-Woo asked. Hope's face became serious. That expression she got when she was thinking hard about something important. I want to tell them that Naomi was my sister. That I never met her, but I know her because you tell me stories. That she was brave and smart and cared about people. And that everyone at the Foundation is carrying on her work. That she's not really gone because her mission is still alive. Aya's eyes filled with tears. Baby, that's beautiful. Is it okay? Can I do it? Yes, Jin-Woo said, his voice rough with emotion. Yes, you can do it. The night of the gala, Hope wore a dress the color of emeralds, Aya's signature color, and stood backstage, clutching her father's hand. I'm nervous, she admitted. That's okay, Jin-Woo told her. Being nervous means you care about doing it right. But remember, everyone out there loves you. They're all family. Even the people I don't know, especially them. They're here because they believe in what we're doing. They're already on your side. When it was time, Hope walked onto that stage with her head high, a 7-year-old girl about to address a room full of Chicago's most powerful people. Hi, she said into the microphone, her voice clear. My name is Hope Naomi Kang. The Naomi part is because of my big sister. I never got to meet her, but I know all about her. The room was silent, every eye on this small girl with her father's intensity and her mother's eloquence. My sister was really brave. She told the truth even when it was dangerous. She helped people even when bad people didn't want her to. And because she was brave, my mom and dad started this foundation. Now lots of people help other people, just like Naomi did. Hope paused, looking out at the crowd with those 2 wise eyes. Sometimes people ask me if I'm sad that I never met my sister. And I am sad about that. But I'm also happy because I get to know her through the work. Every person we help, that's Naomi. Every kid who gets rescued, that's Naomi. Every time someone is brave enough to tell the truth, that's Naomi. Aya was openly crying now, Jin-Woo's arm tight around her shoulders. So thank you, Hope continued. Thank you for being here. Thank you for helping. Thank you for making sure my sister's bravery wasn't for nothing. And thank you for being part of our family, because that's what this foundation is. It's a really big family that takes care of each other. The applause started before she finished, building to a standing ovation that lasted minutes. Hope smiled, gave a little bow like Jin-Woo had taught her, and walked off stage into her parents' waiting arms. You were perfect, Aya whispered, holding her daughter close. You made Naomi proud, Jin-Woo added. And you made us proud. Can we have cake now? Hope asked, ever practical. They laughed through their tears. Yes, baby. We can have cake now. Marcus found them in the hallway, Rachel at his side. That was incredible, he said, his voice thick. She's got Pierce guts and Kang steel. The world better watch out. Don't I know it, Jin-Woo said, but his pride was evident. Speaking of watching out, Rachel said with a smile. We have news. Aya looked at Rachel's face, then at Marcus's nervous excitement, and knew. You're pregnant. 3 months, Rachel confirmed. We wanted to wait until we were sure before telling anyone. Hope's eyes went wide. I'm going to have a cousin? You are, Marcus said, scooping her up. Think you can handle being a big cousin? I'm going to be the best big cousin, Hope declared. I'll teach them everything. About Naomi and justice and how to negotiate bedtime. Oh no, Marcus said. We've created a monster. You have no idea, Jin-Woo said with a laugh. The foundation continued to grow, but so did the family. Marcus and Rachel's daughter, named Maya, was born healthy and beautiful. Hope took her role as big cousin seriously, reading to Maya, showing her pictures of Naomi, already planning all the trouble they'd get into together. She's going to corrupt Maya, Marcus observed, watching Hope carefully explain the concept of fairness to a 6-month-old. Probably, Aya agreed, but in the best way. Jin-Woo's businesses had evolved beyond anyone's expectations. The tech development division Ji-Hai ran in Seoul was now a major player in ethical AI development. The manufacturing operations prioritized worker welfare and environmental sustainability. The security consultancy helped other organizations go legitimate. You've built something remarkable, Captain Shin told him during one of their quarterly strategy meetings. A decade ago, you were Chicago's most feared crime boss. Now you're one of its most respected philanthropists and businessmen. I had good motivation, Jin-Woo said, his eyes finding Aya across the conference room where she was explaining something to Marcus. Love doesn't usually reform people this thoroughly. It wasn't just love. It was finding someone worth being better for. Someone who saw the potential for good in me and refused to let me settle for less. Shin followed his gaze. She's something special. She's everything. On their 15th wedding anniversary, counting from their original ceremony, not the vow renewal, Jin-Woo surprised Aya with a trip back to Seoul. Not for business this time, but just for them. Hope is staying with Marcus and Rachel, he told her. We have 2 weeks. No work, no foundation, no obligations. Just us. Jin-Woo, we can't just leave for 2 weeks. We can and we are. We have capable teams. The world will survive without us for 14 days. Seoul had changed in the years since their last visit, but the places that mattered remained. They walked the Han River at sunset, ate at the restaurant where his grandmother used to work, visited temples and markets, and all the places that had shaped him. I never thought I'd have this, Jin-Woo said one evening as they stood on a bridge overlooking the river. A family, a purpose, peace. You fought for it, Aya reminded him. We both did. I'd fight for it again. Every day, every minute. I know. She leaned against him, comfortable and certain. That's why we work. We both know what we have is worth protecting. Do you ever regret it? The complexity? The constant security? The fact that my past never fully goes away? Never, she said firmly. Yes, it's complicated. Yes, there are challenges. But I'd rather have this complicated, messy, beautiful life with you than any easy life without you. He kissed her there on the bridge, 15 years of history and promise in that touch. I love you, he murmured against her lips. Every version of you. The lawyer who fights for justice. The mother who teaches our daughter to be brave. The wife who chose to come back to me. I love you too. The monster and the man. The crime boss and the philanthropist. The father who makes sure Hope knows she's loved. The husband who never stopped waiting for me. They stayed on that bridge until the city lights turned the river into a mirror of stars, holding each other, grateful for the journey that brought them here. Back in Chicago, life continued its beautiful chaos. Hope turned 10, then 12, already volunteering at the foundation and making it clear she intended to follow in Naomi's footsteps. Maya grew into a spirited 7-year-old who worshipped her older cousin. Marcus and Rachel were talking about having another child. Captain Chun was now Deputy Chief Chun. The foundation had expanded to 20 cities across 5 countries. And Jin-Woo and Aya? They'd learned to balance it all. The work that mattered, the family they'd built, the love that had survived separation and grief and transformation. On what would have been Naomi's 35th birthday, they gathered at her grave. All of them, Jin-Woo, Aya, Hope, Marcus, Rachel, Maya, Chun, and dozens of others whose lives had been touched by the foundation. Hope placed flowers on the headstone, her hand lingering on her sister's name. "Hi, Naomi," she said softly. "I'm 12 now. Almost as old as you were when you started investigating. Mom says I have your eyes. Dad says I have your stubborn streak. I think I have both." Aya's hand found Jin-Woo's, squeezing tight. "The foundation helped 3,000 people this year," Hope continued. "That's 3,000 people who are safe because of you. Because you were brave enough to tell the truth. I want you to know that I'm going to keep it going. When I'm old enough, I'm going to work at the foundation too. I'm going to make sure your work never stops." She stepped back, and others came forward. Survivors sharing how the foundation had saved them. Activists talking about systemic changes that had come from Naomi's investigations. Young people who'd been inspired by her story to fight for justice. When everyone had spoken, when the flowers had been placed and the tears had fallen, the sun was setting over Oakwood Cemetery. "She'd be proud," Jin-Woo said quietly. "Of all of this. Of hope. Of what we've built. She orchestrated it," Aya replied. "Got us both to her funeral knowing what would happen. She knew we needed each other. Smart girl. The smartest." They walked back to the car, Hope between them, holding both their hands. Behind them, the foundation staff and supporters dispersed, carrying Naomi's legacy with them into the world. "Mom? Dad?" Hope said as they drove home. "Yes, baby. When I'm older and working at the foundation, will you tell me the truth about everything? About Dad's past and Mom's fears and all the hard parts?" Jin-Woo and Aya exchanged glances in the rearview mirror. "Yes," Jin-Woo said. "When you're old enough, we'll tell you everything. The good, the bad, and the complicated." "Good," Hope said, satisfied. "Because I want to understand all of it. I want to know how you turn something dark into something that helps people. That's important." "It is," Aya agreed. "And we'll make sure you understand. Not just what happened, but why, and how we learned from it." That night, after Hope was asleep, Jin-Woo and Aya stood on their balcony one more time, looking out at the city that had seen their transformation. 15 years, Aya said softly. "Since that funeral. Best 15 years of my life. Even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts. They made us who we are." She turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd waited 5 years for her, who'd built an empire and torn it down, who'd transformed darkness into light. "What do you think the next 15 years will bring?" "Hope graduating college. Probably taking over the foundation before we're ready to let her. Maya following in her footsteps. Marcus probably having that third kid he and Rachel keep talking about. More challenges, more victories, more moments like this." "Sounds perfect." "It does." He kissed her forehead. "As long as I have you, every version of the future is perfect." They stood there until the city lights blurred with approaching dawn, just as they had so many times before. Two people who'd chosen each other despite everything, who'd built a family from grief, who'd turned tragedy into purpose. The ghost of Seoul and the civil rights attorney. The crime boss and the lawyer. The husband and wife. The parents. The partners. Just Jin-Woo and Aya, choosing each other every single day. And in her room, Hope slept peacefully, dreaming of the future she'd build on the foundation her parents and sister had created. A future bright with hope. Always hope. So there you have it, beautiful people. Ayanna and Jin-Woo's story. From grief to redemption, from separation to reunion, from broken to whole. They didn't get a perfect ending because life isn't perfect. But they got each other, and sometimes that's more than enough. What did you think? Did Jin-Woo's possessiveness make your heart race or make you want to run? Did Aya's strength inspire you? Did their second chance romance give you all the feels? Drop a comment below and tell me your favorite scene. Was it the funeral shootout? The restaurant confrontation? That first kiss after 5 years? The warehouse rescue? The pregnancy reveal? Hope's speech at the gala? Or maybe the ending when they finally chose each other completely? And if you love this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more dark romance, found family, and love stories that make you believe in second chances. Until next time, remember, true love doesn't give up. It fights. It waits. It transforms. It endures. Now go hug someone you love and tell them they're your reason. Trust me, it matters. This is your storyteller, signing off. Peace, love, and may your own love story be as epic as Crimson Soul. Thank you for experiencing this journey with Ayanna and Jin-Woo. May your own love story be filled with passion, purpose, and unshakable devotion.